At the conclusion of the autopsy, Dr. GC advised that the decedent was shot one time to the back of the head. What a coward. She didn't even see it coming. Then we see somebody runs over, looks like tending to somebody on the ground. The defendant is observed bending down. Actually, that is the shooter, and bending down next to them. What a monster, man. Get away from them.
And I think the judge was very astute when she made it clear that she believed that he crossed the country with a weapon, with the intent to commit a crime of violence. And her decision was the correct one, based upon the facts and the law.
The DC shooter now charged. Been waiting for this to drop, and it has now come down out of the DC Superior Court. We'll take a look at the affidavit that was submitted today and hear from Judge Jeanine Pirro, who is prosecuting this over there in DC. She came out, gave us about a 5-minute update, and detailed the latest. But the guy testified apparently from a hospital bed. And you can see they tell us that he's an Afghan man, appeared virtually today, didn't have a lot of cameras or a lot of fanfare around it. We just, boom, got the charges, the news broke, we got the documents, and here's the latest. Now, he's accused of shooting 2 National Guardsmen. Of course, Sarah Beckstrom shot and killed. May she rest in peace. Andrew Wolf is in critical condition. And we're happy to report that apparently there's some consciousness that has emerged, saying that he responded to a nurse reporting from CBS News and wiggled his toes, according to the West Virginia governor. So prayers up for Andrew, who is still in critical condition. He responded to a nurse with a thumbs up and was able to move his toes, which is a positive sign, but can't speculate on his recovery. Said the only request that mom had is pray. Sarah Beckstrom was killed in the attack, was remembered as an amazing woman, saying the death of her was a result of an act of terrorism, and of course, flags half-staff until further notice out there. Prayers up for Andrew. Rest in peace to Sarah. Prayers up for both of their families today. But this guy got arraigned, and the DC Superior Court magistrate judge is named Renee Raymond, ordered that Lakenwall, the guy who allegedly did the shooting, be held without bond. Obviously, it is a murder case. He said, no condition or combination of conditions will reasonably assure the safety of our community. And that sheer terror, says the judge, this reporter in the room reporting, from the incident contributed to her decision to hold him without bond. She said, it's fairly clear to me, the judge, that he came across the country 3,000 miles armed with a specific purpose in mind to conduct this attack. Now, he was hospitalized and he was appearing in the courtroom via video and seen wiggling and moving in his bed. All but his head was covered by a blanket. The man mumbled his name when asked while squinting. The guy's probably just doped up on all sorts of stuff. And he said through a translator, he said he cannot open his eyes. Oh, boo-hoo. So he said, I have pain. He was charged with several crimes, including premeditated murder and assault with intent to kill, pleaded not guilty to all counts. A lawyer appointed to the case told Raymond. An interpreter also accompanied him to the virtual hearing, translating between Pashto and English. One of his attorneys is called Terrence Austin. He argued that his client should be released. Yeah, I'm sure. Which defense attorneys have to do. No, Your Honor, it's all misunderstanding, and let's release him and put him on pretrial monitoring. A prosecutor argued, no, are you kidding, Judge? The seriousness of the charges, including first-degree murder while armed, call for him to be detained pre-trial. It's the statute. We charge him with murder. He has to be detained. The prosecutor also argued the man has no ties to the city. No conditions of release could ensure the safety of our community. He spent the last few years living in Washington State with his family, came to the U.S. in 21 after working with U.S. forces in Afghanistan before the military withdrew from the country. Then Jeanine Pirro was there in the courtroom, sitting in the front row today. U.S. Marshals seated next to her. Austin said that during the hearing on Tuesday, the jury pool was being tainted. Yeah, we know. Which is interesting because Luigi Mangione, we just saw new photos of him. So how come you can see photos of him in New York or Kyle Rittenhouse in Minnesota, but certain people, obviously you can't do that, like if you're Tyler Robinson in the Charlie Kirk case, and it's very hush-hush about media access. Now, Austin said the jury pool's being tainted, and after the hearing, Pirro came out. We've got that queued up, so we'll listen to that. But the next court hearing is going to be on January 14th, so we've got some time. The charging document came out and says this guy screamed Allahu Akbar as he opened fire, and I'm sure they're going to continue to investigate the motive. There was an 8-page court filing. 2 victims fell to the ground. We'll go into the documents and see exactly what came down, and here's what was submitted today. December 2nd, 2025. On November 25, 2025, we remember Beckstrom and Wolf, the 2 National Guardsmen who were shot in ambush, who are members of the Army National Guard in West Virginia. They were deputized by acting U.S. Marshal Ron Carter to serve as Special Deputy U.S. Marshals. Under the terms of their special deputation, they were deputized to act to protect federal property and functions in the District of Columbia and to support other federal enforcement agencies and to be armed with their service-issued weapons while on duty. Now, the complainant, Reynolds, also a member of the Army National Guard of Virginia, carries the rank of major, and he was also deputized under the same order. On November 26th, the next day, they come in. You're going to get sworn in. Hey, thanks for working Thanksgiving. You guys are awesome. You're heroes. videos. Everyone else is going to go spend time with their families. You're going to sacrifice your time with your families to improve the streets in our capital city. We appreciate that. They were on patrol near the intersection. And by the way, I just want to point out that the Democrats, the seditious six, were saying that that was illegal. We went through other tweets. One of the seditious six, whatever, one of the white ladies, she said unconstitutional orders should not be followed. Illegal orders should not be followed in her little video. And on her X account also said that the National Guard deployments were unconstitutional. So if you're a National Guardsman who is deployed, according to her, you're committing a war crime. You're acting in violation of the Constitution, which maybe is what inspired this guy. On November 26th, Beckstrom and Wolf, they were on patrol near the intersection of 17th and I Street, Northwest Washington, D.C., and they were on duty in full uniform, were engaged in the performance of official duties. At approximately 2:13 p.m., complainant Reynolds and another major with the Army Guard were on routine patrol supervising ARNG troops in the area. Now, Reynolds and W1, witness 1, met up with the complainant, so Beckstrom and Wolf, the victims here, and were talking with them when gunfire erupted. It's almost like 4 people are standing around and then it happens. Now, complainant Reynolds reported that he heard gunshots and saw Beckstrom and Wolf fall to the ground while simultaneously seeing the defendant, subsequently identified as Ramunala Lakenwal, shooting a gun and screaming Allahu Akbar as he's shooting our service members, presumably in the head. Now, Reynolds immediately pulled his issued service weapon and engaged the defendant, the terrorist. During the subsequent gunfight, the defendant was shot and fell to the ground. Reynolds reported that it appeared that his firearm was empty and that he was reloading his gun. So then Reynolds, the National Guardsman, reported that witness 1 immediately jumped on this terrorist as the defendant was attempting to reload. Reynolds advised that witness 1, he and witness 1, and a uniformed U.S. Secret Service officer who was also there, assisted in apprehending this Afghani. Now, complainants Beckstrom and Wolf were unresponsive. They were suffering from gunshot wounds to the head, okay? Came up and shot them right in the head like a coward. Complainants Beckstrom and Wolf were immediately transported from the scene to a local hospital where they were admitted in critical condition. Prayers up for them. Now, the defendant, identified as Ramunala Lakenwal, was born in 1996, was placed under arrest for assault with the intent to kill and transported to a local hospital where he remains and was appearing virtually by telephone or by Zoom. On Thursday, November 27, all life-saving efforts failed, and complainant Sarah Beckstrom was pronounced dead at 17:58 hours by hospital staff. May she rest in peace. We'll see her soon, but not yet. Descendant Beckstrom's remains were transported to the office of the chief medical examiner for the D.C. pending an autopsy. Then on Friday, November 28th, Dr. Kristinza Geese of the D.C. medical examiner performed an autopsy on the remains of Sarah. At the conclusion of the autopsy, Dr. G.C. advised that the decedent was shot 1 time to the back of the head. What a coward. She didn't even see it coming because he can't even, engage them like a man. Dr. Geese ruled the cause of death to be a gunshot wound to the head, and the manner of death was ruled a homicide. Now, video was recovered from a number of locations near the crime scene. On the video, the defendant can be observed standing on the sidewalk of I Street outside the Farragut West Metro Station in Washington for about a minute. The defendant appears to be glancing westbound toward the intersection with 17th Street. He then begins running in the direction of the intersection. It's like, man, you got to just be on high alert everywhere you go. There's maniacs everywhere. It could be sitting on a bus, they slice your neck. You're a National Guardsman standing on a street corner. You've got predators who are just waiting to kill you. On another video, the defendant, the Afghani, is observed coming around the corner at the intersection with his hands raised in a firing stance. He immediately begins firing in the direction of Beckstrom and Wolf, and they are both observed collapsing on the ground. Additionally, he is then observed chasing and shooting at witness 1. 3 screenshots are included below. He is circled in red. Members of the ARNG are circled in blue. And here is one screenshot. So shooters in red, National Guard in blue. As the defendant comes around the corner, he is immediately observed firing at the National Guard members. Okay, so there's about 4 of them standing there. He turns the corner. Boom, boom. Sarah's, right there. Andrew's right there. They both get hit in the back of the head. One of the others is a witness. Another one is a National Guardsman. And he draws, and then they try to secure the shooter. Then we fast forward. Here's another one. You see they're down. Then we see after complainants Beckstrom and Wolf collapse, then the defendant chases and continues to fire at W1, right? So this guy's now in a shootout trying to escape the ambush, and he's racing around behind maybe this vehicle or behind this bus station here. Then we see somebody runs over, looks like tending to somebody on the ground. The defendant is observed bending down. Actually, that is the shooter, and bending down next to them. What a monster, man. Get away from them. Beckstrom and Wolf, after shooting them. So he shoots them, then he goes over maybe to check if he hit them, and all of that occurred. That's the affidavit. So all of that occurred in the city of Washington, D.C. So they're being charged in the city court, in the Superior Court, not the federal court. So they've got him now. That's the affidavit submitted. And as we saw, the charges have come down and murder is on the list. So we see a couple of updates from the administration. Pam Bondi brought this up today at the cabinet meeting with the president. Here's what that sounded like.
Talking about Sarah, heartbreaks for her family, and Andy is doing well. His parents, Melody and Jason, wanted me to tell you, and I was with them yesterday in the hospital. He's a miracle. I was there when the surgeons came in, and they wanted you to know this. He's a miracle, and if everyone in this country can continue to pray for that family, he's got a long road ahead of him, but he is a miracle. The monster will be held accountable who did this.
All right, so that's from Pam, and then Janine Pirro came out today after the court proceeding took place, and here's what she had to say.
Were you all in the courtroom? Yeah. As you know, Ramanella Lackenwall was just arraigned in front of Judge Raymond and charged with 4 counts of murder while armed, as well as possession of a firearm during the course of a crime of violence, 2 counts of that, as well as assault with intent to kill while armed. The defendant is still in a hospital. He's in a medical facility, and when he is well enough to leave that medical facility, he will be put in a correctional facility that has the means to address his medical concerns. Now, the case now moves to January the 14th, when there will be a preliminary hearing. However, during the course of that time, from now to January 14th, our federal partners continue to work with the MPD, the FBI, the National Guard, everyone, to continue to investigate as well as collect evidence so that we can add additional potential charges, potentially federal charges that we can bring against this defendant. And let me just say that although we have lost Sarah, we continue to pray for Andrew Wolf. He is still in the hospital, and please keep them in your thoughts and in your prayers.
We will.
And finally, let me just say, this individual was brought into this country as a result of the largesse of the American people and the American government. And he betrayed us by shooting and killing one individual, and right now harming another individual that we hope will survive. Other than that, that's all I can say.
What about their argument that you had no right to argue that he should be held? What did you think of that argument?
Well, I think it's laughable. I think anyone about whom we know nothing, and make no mistake, there's no vetting, and the fact that we don't have a rap sheet on this guy, as if he was born in the Bronx or in the district, should tell us that, he is clean. We have no idea who he is. He has no connections to the community. The crime is one that we believe we will be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And I think the judge was very astute when she made it clear that she believed that he crossed the country with a weapon, with the intent to commit a crime of violence. And her decision was the correct one, based upon the facts and the law.
What did you and the judge discuss after the hearing?
We didn't discuss anything. Whenever I go into a different courtroom, I had never met this judge before. We were very clear to say, I just wanted to introduce myself and say thank you. I do that with every judge. Federal judges, Superior Court judges. You can bring a transcriber with us. I don't do anything more than that.
Judge, the president has said he wants to reinstate the death penalty in D.C. There's some debate about the legality of that, but is that something your office is considering in this case? Have there been conversations about seeking it here?
Look, that is a very weighty decision. That is a decision that comes later in time, and that is one that ultimately the Attorney General will make. My job and the job of my office and the great federal partners, the investigative partners, who work around the clock, and I wish you could see these people. They don't sleep. They work around the clock investigating this case. Our job is to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt and make sure that we have all of the evidence that is out there so that we can charge whatever crimes are appropriate in this case. We are pursuing everything. There is nothing off the table right now. This is an individual about whom we don't know a lot, but we will, trust me, before it's over. Thank you.
All right, Judge Janine in there explaining what's going on with the shooter, but charges have now dropped. We saw just a smattering of the evidence and some of those horrific screenshots from the terrorist attack is what it looks like. But he is now going to be held in custody pending future court proceedings, and we'll have another court date coming up next year in January. In the meantime, prayers up for our friends Andrew and the family of Sarah, who are all still recovering from this horrific tragedy. So we'll keep our eye on this one, my friends. Thanks for joining as we do.